It is Saturday, November 16th, and the American people have spoken loudly and clear. And as a result of their voices, the GOP is taking the House. They have a red wave. Some would call it a trifecta. And someday it'll be studied in the books of history. This presidency, the Senate, and the House was finalized this week. But was this expected, honestly? Is anybody really surprised when you think about how Democrats have alienated the core of their base, trying to appease more to the fringe sect of their party rather than the common sense of their party? They've turned their party into a contest of who can appease the fringe left like AOC and eating them alive at the same time. Is this a historic win? Well, some people would say that Trump is a seasoned veteran. I used to think so until he nominated Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Then I had to go back in time. We don't know exactly what we're getting. We know we have Trump, but we'll soon find out. I think his appointments tells us a lot. But Trump's agenda succeeding is now all but guaranteed, with no Democrats standing in his way. That's just why Mr. Thune being elected Senate Majority Leader was so important, because Trump did not get his choice of Rick Scott. Now, let me just say this. Trump has made a lot of safe bets with his appointments so far. And there were no red flags until I go back to what I said a few minutes ago. Matt Gaetz is going to be so difficult to cross the finish line. It isn't strange that he immediately resigned his seat in the House, knowing that the House Ethics Committee were about to release their report on, remember what Matt Gaetz was alleged to be involved in, not by Democrats. Well, it's not a Democratic witch hunt. The former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, said he was sleeping with underage teenagers. This is from Kevin McCarthy. This is not Democrats. So what could be Trump's thinking behind all this? Is it revenge? Is it sending a message? Some are pointing out the fact that because Donald Trump has faced a breadth of very unlawful conduct from people within the federal government and state government, that he needs somebody loyal to him that will follow his every command to go after these people. Didn't he already get that from the American people? Didn't he get that? Didn't he get his mandate? Is he still insecure? Isn't that Trump may have realized that when he's out of office, he'll be used as a scapegoat by Democrats for the remainder of his life? By the time he gets out of office, he's almost 90 years old. People will be done with Trump. The Trump era will be over. When will he learn? He won. And he won in a resounding way. The pettiness, the vindictiveness, the ruthlessness should be behind him. Welcome to this edition of the broadcast. Marcia, my sister, welcome.
Thank you,
It is a morning in America.
Yes, it is.
Joe Paul, welcome to Morning in America. Patrice, Onwuka, so good to have you back. You're smiling as if you just won the lottery, did you?
I'm blessed to be alive, so that's winning in my books.
Why Matt Gaetz? Let me start with you. Why? Come on. Why give the media this narrative? Why?
Matt Gaetz is a bomb thrower. We saw that when he torpedoed the speakership of Kevin McCarthy previously, and certainly, led Republicans to look like they could not govern once they were in power. But Matt Gaetz is competent, and we have seen him get into some very contentious hearings. Call to task the very people, the heads of departments, including Merrick Garland, when it came to a number of issues, particularly, in terms of what the Justice Department has investigated, who they have chosen to investigate, and who they have chosen to take a blind eye to. So, would he have been my first pick, or am I surprised? I'm absolutely surprised. But I think that there are many people in the MAGA world, people who support President Trump and his agenda, who think this is what you need to do to get to the bottom of the rotten corruption that exists in some of these federal agencies, particularly when it comes to law enforcement, the Justice Department. And so will he survive the confirmation hearing in the Senate? That is a very big question. Because,
Let me answer that for you. No. And Trump knows it. Here's the problem, though. You all need to understand what Trump's doing. Greg Masad and I were talking just before the show. That's a trial balloon. You don't know who he's really preparing to appoint for that position. Okay? That's the thing that you guys need to focus on.
Yep.
My man Joe Paul, you grew up with Matt Gaetz.
I did.
Yeah, they were in school together. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Matt Gaetz used to carry his coffee.
It's true.
Is that right?
Oh, talk about the young Matt Gaetz.
Well, young Matt Gaetz was ambitious. I mean, when I was running for student body president at Florida State University, he helped a lot. He was on my campaign. He helped get coffee. He helped pass out flyers. And he was a normal human being, if you will. But things have changed. You know,
But he supported you.
He did. He absolutely did.
And he was bright.
He was bright. He was ambitious. He was outgoing. You know, he had a great future ahead of him. And I don't know what Trump is thinking with this pick, but I agree with you, Armstrong. When you see this red herring that is Matt Gaetz, and he's going to have a tough time being confirmed by the Senate. I mean, they're going to air out all of his dirty laundry and things that we don't even know about. I don't think he's ready for that scrutiny that's coming down his way.
You know, let me get Marcia in on this conversation. I do think that not only did the Democratic base voted for Donald Trump, but they voted for Donald Trump that would also help heal the nation, unify this country, because I think people have struggled for so long, and it was no question a repudiation of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's policies over the last 4 years. And I would just go back to that image of our President Joe Biden in the White House this week, welcoming the former president, and the smiles and the warmth that he has. What is it that the president-elect can do to build on that goodwill?
I think that he should go forth without any bickering, without any vilification of anybody in the Democrat Party. Like you said, he has to realize that he did win. And he won by a lot of the Democrat vote, especially black men we see and the black women. When you look at, you know, the Brexit really became real of 2016. It really showed itself up this particular time of 2020. But also, when you look at the 15 million people who didn't vote and they're being blasted, for me, they were the silent majority because they didn't want to choose the lesser two evils. But what they were really signaling, those who did not vote, were that they were dissatisfied with what's happening in that nation. So for me, that kind of lends for a clearing ground that both parties can look at what was missing, what it needs to be done for the American citizenry. We make it into a personality contest almost every election. But it's not a time for that. There are people that are really hurting. And as a grassroots organizer, my concern was that you talked about the middle class and forgot about 36 million people of all diverse backgrounds who are living under the poverty line. No one spoke to them. No one really visited them. Now, Trump did on the peripherals. They did like with Westmore, how he won the state of Maryland, which is a southern state, which people forget. You have to go to the outpost of your citizenry if you really want to win the constituency. We don't want to hear about a celebrity being an influencer. I mean, look what the influencers did. When you have the top 4 influencers, Oprah, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and Cardi B out for the vice president, and which represents almost 1 billion in so-called influencer, and does not move the needle, that's because the people who bought the tickets, those who really they want to come for the name, but those who could not even afford a ticket are living a reality that they refuse to address. They forget that Dr. King had a poor people's march, not a middle people's march. They forget the legacy of Dr. Dorothy Height, that I want to imbibe her spirit. Because they say, Marcia, you know, you just weren't out there. Well, I'm not going to put myself out there for uncertainty. But what Dr. Height did do, she met with every president during her adulthood, from Eisenhower to a Barack Obama, who took 2 years to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus, almost by force, through the Black Women's Roundtable. But you got to be in the room where it happens so that you can do what can happen as a grassroots organizer, to be in that room.
So let me go to Patrice Onwuka. You know, no one is talking enough about the power and the influence that Elon Musk not only is going to wield on our government when Trump takes power, the influence that he's wielding now. And I know they want to create an efficient government, he and Ramaswamy, but what will that look like? And they're saying that the Republicans, because they control the Congress now, they will fund it. What does that mean? And how will that change America, Patricia? I think it's important.
So I think what he wants to establish is probably going to be done through executive order, but it would be, I wouldn't call it a quasi-government entity, more like maybe a commission that's going to look at every single federal agency and frankly provide cover for all of the agencies to start to go line item by line item and look at where the government's money is being spent. This is definitely going to be a spending side play. I would hope that they start to tackle the entitlements, which are a huge driver of our national debt. But think about all of the programs from humanities to the sciences, the colleges and universities, the nonprofit organizations, and then hop over to the defense side of this, the ticket as well, the ledger. What are the defense contractors? How are we spending money there? And so the idea is we need to right-size government. The idea that government continues to grow and more people are added from the poverty line rather than being removed, that is not what really good government should really be about. Excuse me. It should be really ensuring that people have the resources that they need. And pet projects, pet programs, things that are either ideologically driven or certainly are just advancing the wrong cause and supporting the wrong agenda, those are the line items that are going to be on the chopping block. Elon Musk is looking to cut $1 to $2 trillion from our federal budget. That would be monumental. And it's not surprising, Armstrong, to see the backlash on every news outlet going after him, because there are a lot of people who make their money on the gravy train of Washington spending, from nonprofits and charities to universities and colleges, to all the people who think that, you know what, the government is where they're going to get their money. And at the end of the day, for all of the money we've spent in a lot of programs, we still have millions of people living in poverty right now, to the point of our other guest here.
You know, she's right. And what she's saying here is that Elon Musk is going to say so in every federal agency. And one thing about him, you don't become the richest man in the world.
Not by accident.
Not by accident. These very smart people, it'll be interesting. Listen, it's the Armstrong Williams Show. Glad you're joining us, and we're going to pay some bills, and we're coming right back at you. Don't go away. There are two observations to my guests. Trump should be very mindful of appointing too many House Republicans, because those seats are hard to fill and could threaten the majority, which is really razor thin. Every time I look around, somebody in the House is going to the United Nations, going to the U.S. Attorney, whatever. So I don't suspect too many more House Republicans will be nominated in the coming weeks. And also, as I watch the circular firing squads reload in Democratic therapy sessions, it's very interesting to watch who's emerging as leaders. Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, AOC, and guess who else? Howard Dean. Old fogies and newbies, out of touch lives. Now, if the Democrats keep looking in the same playbook for answers, Joe, they'll never leave the wilderness.
Look, it's really interesting. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always gotten. It's plain and simple. So you have to change the playbook. If you want a different outcome, you have to change a different input. You know, going really quickly back to the...
No, before you go to Elon, because I want you to get to Elon. I want to come back to you.
Please.
Because you were in the wilderness during the election, leading up to the election.
Yes, I was.
How did you get yourself in the wilderness to be so far off what the election results were? And what did you learn from that?
You know, a couple of things. I mean, I actually saw that there was a possibility for change and hope, and bought into the rhetoric and the narrative. One thing that I did understand was that the Democratic Party was not speaking to the working class, right? There's a Pew study that was done recently that said over 50% of Americans can't handle a $1,000 emergency. They don't have $1,000 in their bank account. They don't have $1,000 cash. That's alarming. And so when you think about those people, they were voting their conscience, they were voting their interests, and they were voting for a person who was going to get them out of this situation, right? I went to the grocery store recently and spent $200 and walked out with 2 bags. And I remember back in the day, you spent $100, you had a carriage full of groceries. So things needed to change. And so I saw the light, and I'll admit on national TV, you were right, Armstrong. You know, we talked about this, and you mentioned to me, like, I don't know, this thing is not going to go that way. And I was like, are you sure? And you were right, I'll admit. And so where do we go from here? You know, the Democrats have to do a shape-shifting moment and really a come to Jesus moment to really understand what went wrong and what do they need to do differently. The same playbook will result in the same response.
You want to come at Elon Musk?
Yeah. So Elon, right? People don't understand, right? Department of Governmental Efficiency, DOGE. Elon Musk started a meme coin called Doge, right? There's a connection there, and Doge is up almost 200%. Right, since he was announced that he was going to be leading that. DOGE, Doge, the Dogecoin, right? So, and Bitcoin is up over 90%, over 90K. These altcoins are up, et cetera. So you have to understand there's a connection there. Elon Musk spent, you know, $100-something million to support Trump, but he's made over close to $90 billion since Trump has been president-elect. So I just wanted to make that connection. DOGE,
so you don't think that's lost on him?
No, not at all. Not at all.
But you're not saying he does not care about government efficiency.
Oh, no.
You're just saying he's benefiting from it.
Absolutely he is. Because, again, why would it be called Department of Governmental Efficiency if there is no DOGE, Dogecoin? I mean,
Patrice, because I'm going to get to Marcia, did you want to push back on what Joel is saying here?
I mean, I think it's coincidental. A and B can be true at the same time, and A does not necessarily lead to B. At the end of the day, I think if we can cut regulations and cut government spending, I think a lot of Americans will be happy about that. And what's weird also is just this realignment of the parties. The Republican Party has now become the party of the working class, and President Trump spoke very specifically to some of those policies, whether it was cutting taxes on overtime pay, cutting taxes on Social Security benefits, cutting taxes on workers who are servers. And so I look forward to seeing those types of policies be enacted while government is right-sided.
You know, so Marcia, it leaves me here. You know, during the days of the pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses leading up to the election, you assume those voters were assuredly going to Vice President Harris. The people that Trump advocated being deported voted for Trump. The people that in Michigan who were the protesters and leaders in the Arab community voted overwhelmingly for Trump. The women who seemingly supposed to care about reproductive rights and abortion and women's issues voted for Trump. In fact, I can't say it enough, the Democratic base left the Democratic Party to vote for Trump. And what it appears, and I think Joe hinted to it, and Patricia, is this. The Democratic Party base is becoming the Republican Party.
Well, I know that you're talking about a strange kind of purple. And I made that observation too, and I'm saying what is it when you seemingly vote against your self-interest, especially when it's put out there, whether it's, my body, my choice, whether you're for, against the genocide that is happening in Gaza, whether you're talking about even with the Puerto Ricans and you have more the Mexican community or the Latin community voting exponentially more for Trump in this particular election than the past. I think it comes to basically what he says he stands for. What he did prove, I think somewhat in his first term, was that he was for Americans. And when you do that, and because his ego is tied to that title, no matter what, he's going to make sure that America is safe. I think he's going to try to make America be more peaceful in its geopolitical engagements, which means he would have to have a very strong conversation with Netanyahu. We also have to look about the mandates that might be coming from the World Economic Forum, as well as the World Health Organization, which impacts our domestic policies and American citizens. I believe that he understands geography, that every country has a border. So I think that they were more appealed to the American idea, whether we could believe it or not, though we realized it a lot in our lifetime, that it would be more equitable. And those people who did vote may understand too that as a servant that we can fight with them, which leads to my earlier statement that I'm the person who want to fight for those rights and ideals that we believe that we could have as all American citizens without social constructs. And the Democrat Party only leaned toward a very small segment of it. And they're the ones who created the most of the divisiveness with those social constructs. So people looked at their self-interest.
So, Patrice, let me go overseas a little, because you know what? All of a sudden, it's kind of quiet overseas. Hamas is talking about becoming reasonable. Zelensky is praising Trump and talking to Putin. Zelensky thinks it's a good thing. Putin, even though people are trying to say he dissed the Donald a little bit, it's not true. They got on the phone and they talked to each other. Netanyahu was in town. They all are paying homage to Trump. Maybe intimidation, maybe fear, maybe crazy. They think that's what he is. Maybe it could work for foreign policy, but you feel there's a new sense of a foreign policy developing abroad.
Well, certainly, there is a sense that President Trump is a strong leader, but more than that, there is a greater respect that I think the foreign leaders have for him compared to Joe Biden. Joe Biden has proven that he has not been right for the 40-plus years he's been in public service, that he has not been right on a lot of foreign issues. And whether you go back to during his presidency, the Afghanistan withdrawal, there are many Americans who will look at that and say that's an example of American weakness on the international stage. I will say that when we compare this topic with the cabinet picks this week, it's interesting that we haven't seen any economic cabinet members named, economic leaders named, but the focus has been on both domestic but also national security. And I think it's because there's a real sense that at any point, some of our most nefarious adversaries, Iran or China, could try something during this transition period. And so part of showing strength as a presidential elect is to nominate and get it installed as quickly as possible people who will demonstrate that they are willing to take on these rogue states, take on the terrorists, and take on those that are funding the terrorist activities that are against our allies and against us here in the United States. It's not surprising that we're seeing that so many fires that have been raging out of control globally suddenly seem to be calm. And but don't be surprised. And I think there's real concern in the Trump transition team that at any moment one of them could try something, whether that's China or that's Iran.
An interesting question to you, Joe. How a person feels is so important. There are Americans who felt when Donald Trump was president, economically they were better. In terms of foreign policy, they were better. In terms of the border, they were better. In terms of the rising crime that they see now, they were better. Doesn't matter whether that's real or not. Mm-hmm. As long as they feel that way, that's what matters. Based on the reality of that, what is it realistically the bar for Donald Trump when he begins his presidency on January 21st? Because some would say, he's going to get the border in control. Yeah. You just know that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. These DAs and the crime, pervasive, you just know it's going to happen. So what is his bar based on what he inherited as president, that he actually has the power to change? And listen, when you think about Tom Homan, mm-hmm. his border czar, what people don't talk about, he started under Obama. He did. Obama appointed him in immigration. He did. And Trump decided to keep him as a holdover from Obama. Mm-hmm. So it's not as if Trump went somewhere and found this guy. In fact, when Obama had the reputation that he deported more people than anybody else, mm-hmm. and they were complaining about it from the Democratic Party, it was Tom that was doing this, and Obama allowed him to do it. Yeah. What does that tell us?
Yeah, look, the bar for Trump on the second term, the sequel, is low. But he really just has to do two things. Yeah,
there you go.
He has to protect the border, mm-hmm. right, and follow through on that. And he has to make sure that he empowers the economy. Folks are more concerned about what's going on in the economy and on the border than they are anywhere else. I mean, you look at these sanctuary cities, and the narrative and the rhetoric around it was, hey, these immigrants are coming in, they're taking your resources, they're taking food from your table that should be going to American people. And so a lot of people can buy that rhetoric. And so he doesn't have much to do, truly, in his first couple of years, but make sure that the border is in control and make sure that folks can afford to feed their families.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, before we delve into another long conversation, what we're going to do, we just enjoy Marcia and Patrice and Joe, just wonderful conversation. We're going to get into Mark Rubio as Secretary of State and some of the picks that this president-elect has made. This is the Armstrong Williams Show. You got that, right? And we'll be back. Don't go away. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It is easier to build up strong children than to try and repair broken men.
The streets are plagued with crime, violence. There's a lot of poverty, and it's all a result of lack of education that's happening in our schools. So it really is a crisis.
We come from very different political perspectives, but we've come to the same conclusion, and that is there is a crisis in the classroom. Children are being deprived of quality of life because they're being deprived of a good education. We must solve this problem. It's incumbent upon all of us to join hands together to get this done.
We can't afford to wait one more day before we address these issues, because every day we lose another child.
Let's stop the politicking. Let's stop the games. Let's really do something to give these kids a real chance at life and being a part of that American dream.
We need accountability for funding. Many of the districts where you're seeing very low test scores, students graduating with very low literacy and math comprehension rates, they are receiving a lot of funding. So where is the money going where our kids aren't being adequately educated?
If you believe every child is deserving of a quality education, please go to educationjusticefoundation.com. Well. It's official. The Jack Smith classified documents case against the Donald is being put to a stop for now. Recently, a motion was filed by Smith to put the case in an indefinite halt, stopping short of dropping it altogether. Now, this comes as the Department of Justice has a standing policy not to prosecute a sitting president, since it is the belief of the Department of Justice that such a prosecution would be unconstitutional. So, of course, this won't end Trump's legal woes, as he is still facing his election interference in Georgia and his slew of other cases in New York. Not too long ago, the Citizens in Trump's business records case in New York was put to a halt. You see, Trump had plenty of motivation to win again, okay? Plenty of motivation. He had a lot at stake. But I come to this point with you, Patricia Onwuka. Donald Trump has an opportunity to really build an incredible legacy. Well, let me just tell you this. Donald Trump can be his own worst enemy if it's not lost on him what the American people just gave him across the board.
Yeah, they gave him a clear mandate to bring down prices, make life more affordable, to make us safe both domestically and internationally. What I think, though, Jack Smith's decisions and frankly, a lot of these cases falling apart have exposed is how much of these cases have been politically motivated. And, the fact that time ran out, so to speak, on Jack Smith is because they didn't time this out quite as well as they probably thought they could. And at the end of the day, the most that came out of a lot of these cases is that Democrats had a talking point on the campaign trail, the felon talking point, which that alone also backfired because Americans were recognized what was political targeting and political lawfare rather than somebody who they believed really committed the egregious crimes that warranted such sweeping national attention and federal probes. And so, you know, here you are now. President Trump he's vowed not to turn a page. And I think his meeting with President Biden this week was an example where he said, you know, I want unity. I want to work with President Biden's transition team to make sure there's a smooth transition. And let's get America going once again. But at the end of the day, no matter how he cleans house and who he puts at these top spots to clean house in these different agencies like the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, it's all going to be viewed as political retribution, when maybe it's just that the people, a lot of these appointees are serving at the behest of the president. And if they are no longer, if they've demonstrated through their actions that they are not going to advance his agenda, then maybe he has a right to remove them.
You know, Joe, I tell you what fascinates me. I give the vice president a lot of respect and credit, as it was with Al Gore, as it was with Hillary Clinton and now VP Harris. She conceded. Some may say she should have conceded the night before. Hillary Clinton didn't, but she did. I'm willing to bet you, had Donald Trump lost this election, it would be so protracted, so many lawsuits. I just don't think he's graceful in that way. You could argue, get upset with me for saying, that's just his personality. That's just not who he is. But I bring this up to make this point. One thing we realize is that Americans were not as divided and as ununified as the mainstream media made them out to be. I mean, even though Donald Trump won, and there are a lot of people angry and upset, the protests, none. The burden, the looting, the Civil War, not even, even for people that didn't support him, when you talk to them, they seem okay.
Yeah.
What did we miss?
Yeah, well, they've accepted the results and the results of the election, right? And so we should not forget 4 years ago, Donald Trump did not accept.
And I acknowledge that.
Right, we shouldn't forget.
Yeah.
And so that led to unpeaceful
a lot
protests.
of chaos.
It led to a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And so when you have a side that says, you know what, okay, hey, fair game, right? The results are the results. The people have spoken. Let's do what the people have said. So then a lot of people will step in line and say, hey, there's no reason to protest because the leaders at the top have conceded, so there's no reason. But Donald Trump, even to this day, has never admitted that his election wasn't stolen, right? And so yeah, I mean, that's why you see a lot of folks who are just locking step and saying, well, look, this is the result. The American people have spoken.
And what does it say about the American people? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, it says that we're resilient, right? It says that we're calm. It says that we are willing to combine and connect behind one leader. I mean, think about 9/11 or any other incidents that's happened in the country. We've come together, right? It shows that we can come together. It also shows that just because Donald Trump is president doesn't mean it's the end of the world, right?
Amen. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that,
Yes.
right? It means that you need to figure out where you fit in and how you can also benefit from this presidency, right? It's not a time for you to bury your head in the sand or complain or, no, get with the program. This is what it is. It is real. On January 20th, he will be the next president of the United States. So now it's time to get with the program and figure out where you fit in.
Yeah.
You know, Marcia, one of the things I respect about you is what people don't realize is what you do on the international scene, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Africa, whether it's Asia. So the person that the president-elect just nominated as his Secretary of State has real meaning and a real impact around the globe. Talk about Mark Rubio. I was actually surprised it was Mark Rubio.
I was surprised.
I was, but he's certainly not a divider. He's really respected.
I was surprised of Mark Rubio. In fact, I was with Mark Rubio in Haiti when I was working for the Clinton Foundation. So when I saw his name, I said, well, at least I know where he's been. I know his compassion for the others, people outside of the United States. I mean, I do question some of the things of his, a very strong statement that he made in relationship to what's happening in
with
Gaza.
Hamas?
It wasn't with Hamas. When you say Hamas to me, I also think about the vulnerability of the Palestinian people, and with all the technology that we have, and the way we can search and biographics, whatever they have, that they can differentiate between citizenship and those who are actually terrorists, because babies to me are not. So I would love to have that conversation with him. But I do think that he's a great choice. He's from Florida, where you have a great diverse population there. He's been on the Hill long enough. He's been following these conversations, I'm sure. But I think that he's not the worst person that you could have, and it'd be up to the future to tell if he would be the best person.
You know, so Patrice, I'm saving this for you. Make the case why Trump made the best choice for his Secretary of Defense.
Oh, and Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is a unique perspective, and I think represents a couple of different generational shifts we're seeing. Number one, he, among a lot of these cabinet picks, are either Gen Xers or very early millennials. So there's a generational shift in terms of transferring the power from the baby boomers and, frankly, the silent generation to a generation that sees the United States' presence in the world very differently. They view wars very differently. And so he's going to approach that differently. Secondly, he is a combat veteran, a decorated combat veteran at that. And so this is someone who is not just the upper echelons of the top brass who make decisions about war, but are often not on the ground to receive the information or to understand what the best tactics and strategies are. I think he'll bring that perspective. He also brings the mandate that people are tired of woke ideological agendas being infiltrated in the military. And so he, believe me, as a culture warrior, he is going to be looking to root out DEI, looking to root out a lot of the programs that are not making the military stronger and have frankly weakened recruitment in a lot of these military divisions. And then third of all, you know, people lead with the fact that he's been a host at Fox News for a decade. I think that's actually probably the lesser thing on his resume. I think that, I mean, he's gone through the Ivy League, went to Yale. So he's not he's a smart man. He served in the military, and he knows very much about it and very passionate about veterans. So he's led a couple of different veterans organizations. And frankly, I think a lot of people look at how veterans are treated today, not just in the current administration, but over the past many decades. Veterans have been left behind despite the sacrifice that they have made. But most recently, when you see a lot of the messages from regular voters saying, my family member is a veteran, he can't get his benefits. The government won't pay his benefits, but you have illegal immigrants coming in through the southern border and are being relocated, giving the benefits that I think rightly belong to the people who have sacrificed so much. So I think he will also take that kind of spirit in terms of ensuring that the veterans are taken care of in this position.
Well, and he certainly, when he was in combat, he had a consistent newsletter updating, informing people about what was going on in the front lines. Now, she explained that well. Mm-hmm. I have no challenges. But
I do.
Make the case for why he made Kristi Noem the Secretary of Homeland Security. Joe, I'm going to turn to you for that.
Look, I tell you, all of these picks that Donald Trump has made has really blown me away. I really don't understand them. There are far more qualified folks who can fill in these roles. What I believe is
But you're not addressed in Kristi Noem. I asked you specifically about Kristi Noem. Now, if you don't know about it,
well, I know enough about it, but I can't make a case for her because I'm
not asking you to make a case. I just
Okay.
want you to understand. I always thought you would help us understand his thinking.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking he wants to surround himself with a bunch of loyalists, right? With a bunch of folks who will not question his actions and his authority, like they did 4 years ago or 8 years ago. He had a lot of folks, Bill Barr, he had a lot of folks that were part of his cabinet who questioned his authority, who fought back. If he said to do something, they asked questions. He really wants people who will do exactly what he says. Marco Rubio even, I mean, they've sparred in public about, it was nasty, right? But so why did he give Marco Rubio this opportunity? Well, I believe because Marco Rubio owes him now, right? And what does he owe him? To say yes, sir, to anything Donald Trump says. And I think anybody he feels himself within the cabinet, whether it's secretary positions, no matter what, they're designed to be loyal to him and loyal to the MAGA movement and to say yes, sir.
You know,
but can I just say there's a difference between questioning?
No. We're good. We're good. It's okay. We're good.
I think.
No. We're good. I'm going somewhere else because we only have 2 minutes left. Robert Kennedy wants to run Health and Human Services, and Dr. Ben Carson is certainly on track to be the head of HHS because, you know, Robert Kennedy has a lot of ideas. HHS is a very important agency, Marcia.
I know.
Talk about.
Well, for me, you know, and all due respect to your great friend, and I think he's a wonderful person, Dr. Ben Carson, my love for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this stance is around health as it relates to pharmaceuticals, vaccination mandates that have proven to be poisonous, and they're very harmful to all the population, all the citizens here in the United States, and his concern about the food additives as well as the environment.
So you agree with him?
On a lot of levels, I really do. Around the food, I do. This is around the food. This is personal as a mother, as a woman. I'm looking at that. We have more ingredients in our food than anywhere else in the world. Our water is unclean. The vaccinations have proved to be toxic, and a lot of people have gotten ill, and some have even died. He is concerned about the environment. Now, some of the other stuff, I don't know. So it's very narrowly conscribed for me. Overall, his appointment and what he was saying when he was running independently for president, I may differ with. So I'm just honing in independently my concern as an American citizen, and that's around the health care in general, and things that may not be well with us, and possibly be able to fight some of those outside forces like the World Health Organization or Klaus Schwab, who acts like he was elected president, trying to create mandates for the whole world, which is offensive to me as an American citizen living in a so-called democracy.
You know, the beautiful thing about being the host of this show is that when I listen to Patricia and Joe and Marcia, I'm always surprised. I learned something. And, you know, Marcia is not all about herself. There are a lot of people who feel this way about the health and the foods and the drugs and their children. They feel this is a very strong. And people try to say that Robert Kennedy is wacko, but he's not wacko. He's speaking to the concerns of a lot of Americans. But that decision will be made next week. You know, you guys talked about veterans. You must have talked it up, because coming back in the final segment, we're going to celebrate our veterans. I want to thank all of you for joining us. You've been terrific guests today, and I hope to have you back soon. Okay, we'll be back. Don't go away. He really surprised me. He really, we're good. We're done. Okay, now we can. Good.
As a home buyer, you need a lender who cares about your home ownership dreams. United Security Financial has been helping families secure their dream homes for 30 years. We're a national fair practice lender that provides affordable mortgages and low down payment programs to eligible home buyers. To learn how United Security Financial can help you secure your dream home, call 1-800-373-4186.
And welcome back. You know, Sean Duclay is the co-founder of Sail Ahead. He's the co-founder of, he's very supportive and involved with our veterans groups, which support PTSD and so much more. Angel Flores is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. We congratulate you on your service, sir. He's an Iraqi war veteran who lost his, as a result of the PTSD-related panic attack. Let me just forget about this and get to this conversation, okay? Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let me start. What are the most pressing issues facing veterans today, and how can this new administration prioritize these challenges that work for you? Let me start with you, Angel.
I believe the most challenging thing right now is recognizing all the different aspects of PTSD and how it goes very unrecognized for a long time. For instance, my PTSD, I didn't acknowledge it until 10 years after my service. You know, it was going on since I was in the service, but it wasn't recognized until about 10 years after.
Sean, what is it that veterans need that is often so neglected, no matter who's in power?
Well, as a civilian, I feel ill-equipped to answer this question, but I agree with Angel. I think that there are a lot of issues in the mental health space that are going unaddressed because of a problem of the culture of the military and just a lack of understanding of the resources available to veterans once they transition out of the military.
Well, to be fair to you, how does Sail Ahead leverage sailing to address PTSD and veteran suicide? And why is this approach, why has it been so effective?
Sure. So there have been a bunch of studies done on just the benefits of being outside and by the sea. So we're combining those things already. But sailing is a sport, it's a physical sport that requires teamwork, and therefore it creates a good sense of camaraderie. And you can take a few different veterans at the start of the sail, put them together on the boat, and I like to call it a sort of forced group therapy session. That's very organic, and obviously you can't bail out because you'd have to swim home. So that's those are some of the reasons why we think it works really well.
you definitely can bail out. That's a very good point. You know, Angel, can you share how your personal experiences with PTSD shaped your perspective on what veterans need most for support?
One thing that came to me after my accident, I realized that I was isolating a lot and keeping distance from those I should be around and staying away from the military community that does exist. And a lot of times you don't want to go to the VA to find those communities. And Sail Ahead provides that community without feeling as if you're in a hospital setting. Be able to go out onto the belt in your situation, doing something that feels normal, and then find that brotherhood that you lose, that when you leave the military, that actually helps and allows you to open up and talk about things that you're not able to talk about to your family. Not that you don't want to, just they wouldn't comprehend because they weren't there. But once you're around those other fellow veterans, it's a lot easier. Just talking alone is a huge therapy, and he provides that space.
Well, what let me stay with you, policy changes or initiatives do you think this administration should implement to combat the high veteran suicide crisis, Angel?
I believe it's something, treating PTSD should start before the veteran leaves the military. It's something that should be addressed while the veteran is in there. Maybe not the first year right away, but those classes should start within the second year the veteran's there. Once they start being put in those high stress situations and comprehend that it's not the same situation that you're gonna deal with when you're out in the civilian world. And this way, once they get to the point where they are transitioning now, or if they become lifers, they have that help the entire time versus waiting until after you get out.
So, Sean, how important is community-based support, such as Sail Ahead, in filling the gaps left by government programs? Because we know that government programs, they do a decent job, but there's so much they neglect to do because they just can't.
Yeah, well, I think a friend of mine, Ron O'Farrell, he's a U.S. Army Ranger, he put it best after his best friend died by suicide. He said that community is the single most important factor for suicide prevention. And so that's really one of our key goals, is to build community. And so we connect the civilian community in the form of sailors and skippers with the veteran community. And we, in some of our large events, our largest event with the Centerport Yacht Club, we had 55 boats participating, and we took over 250 veterans and their family members sailing, and then we had a barbecue afterwards. So this building community, it's super important because, like Angel was saying, there's this sense of isolation, and you can address that sense of isolation by creating community, creating people you can depend on, and in times of crisis that you can call on to help you get out of those dark moments.
You know, I think you're really saying something here. And I think Angel hinted to it earlier about sometimes there's just people you need to stay away from. And there's just certain environments you need to stay away from. You know, people are just not sensitive to what people are struggling with. I'm staying with you, Sean. I know you guys have these long-term goals with Sail Ahead and bridging sort of the gap between the military and civilian communities. But is it that we in the media should do a better job of bridging these gaps of social media? Is it something that we should do more into the communities? How do we make people really understand the plight of these veterans and how to empower them, and not even sometimes unintentionally just saying the wrong thing and triggering something in the process?
That's a really interesting question. Sorry, Angel.
Angel, you wanted to say something?
Brotherhood and sisterhood. Two simplest things. Treat us like family. That's all we want, and we'll treat you like family. And if everybody treats each other like family, not even just the veteran community alone, everybody be better off.
Sean, continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think just using kindness as your standard operating procedure is very beneficial. But something I learned over the past 10 years of working in Sail Ahead is that there are many organizations and there are many people out there who have good hearts, who are doing the right thing, who are doing their best to create a positive impact. But they exist, we may be 15 minutes away from each other, but we don't even know that we exist. So I think what role the media has to play is to amplify the work of these organizations, such as Sail Ahead, in order that yes, of course, veterans can find us and come and participate in our programs, but we can also learn about, for example, the ranch that's helping veterans with equine therapy, and then we can create some synergy there. But the VA does a pretty good job at creating at helping direct veterans to our program and other programs that are maybe less conventional. But like Angel said before, it can be intimidating or even daunting to go to the VA for a myriad of reasons. Whereas if you said, hey, there's this family that's taking veterans sailing on a 70-foot boat or whatever boat we happen to be using, and it's good vibes, it's a good time, and then it's almost like therapy without being therapy. It's a little sneaky in that sense, but I think that's why it really works, because it's so casual, it's so laid back, and we treat people like friends and family, and it's as simple as that.
It hasn't always been, Angel, the insensitivity to people who put everything on the line and fight for this country. For those watching today around the world, what do we have to do to help veterans who feel isolated or struggle to reach out for help?
I think the easiest thing is just letting them know that there is a place, that there's a place where they can head to. I think that's the easiest thing. A lot of times people see us for the hard task that we have to wear while we're in the military, and we do show that when we're out in public, because that's all we've known what to do. But it's hard for us to open up. It's hard for us to show our soft side. Just knowing that we can, I think, makes a huge difference.
Is it that you don't want to open up because of trauma, flashes of the past, or you just don't think you just feel it's just a waste of my time? Why am I going to bother with somebody who's going to probably say something offensive and probably would never understand? What is it?
I think it's both. It's the I need to be hard, and that fear of rejection, that fear that if I do open up, no, you're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be in the military. You defend this country. You're not supposed to have a feeling. They need to understand we do. Do we have that switch where we can turn it off when we have to carry out our duties for the country? Yes. But we would like to turn that switch off when we're able to. And programs that still allow us to do that, I felt comfortable enough to get on the boat without my bionic arm, as I am, and felt safe and secure enough to partake, pull the ropes and move the boat, understand that I had to be in a teamwork, even though I'm a one-armed person. And things like that allow me to open up and let my fear go in.
But I think also the thing that you're saying to us today, in the 45 seconds we have left, doesn't matter how long you serve, how long you've been out, there's just some things that never heals. It may go away, but it always comes back. And once people realize that you're human and that you're just as vulnerable as the next person, I think you become relatable. But the point is just, you served this country and you paid a heavy price for it.
Thank you. You said it so well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you, Sean, for what you do. We really appreciate it. So glad Aaron booked you guys today. We're going to have you back because we have a responsibility here in the mainstream media to do more, also to tell your story and make people sensitive. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Marcia, Joe, and Patricia. I'm Armstrong Williams. We're out of here.